Hello, everyone, and welcome to part three of our four-part series looking at defending assessment security in a digital world. We continue our conversation with Professor Phillip Dawson of Deakin University. Hello, Phil.
Hey, Chakwadi.
In the last episode, we were looking at assessment security. We started the conversation with regards to assessment security. Today, we're going to be looking or stretching that topic to understand the role AI plays in the assessment security space. To begin, I saw part of while I'm reading the book, there was a concept around imperfect assessment. So what does that mean, and what would potentially make for a perfect assessment security?
Yeah, so imperfect assessment security is this idea that, as in other security contexts in life, cyber security or airport security, we will never get it perfect. We'll never get the most robust type of assessment that nobody can cheat in. There's a concept in cyber security of, the only secure is one that's encased in a cardboard, encased in a concrete box deep underground and disconnected from everything. And that's completely infeasible. We don't want that sort of thing for assessment. So it's always about making trade-offs between assessment security, how good we can get that, knowing we'll never get it perfect, and other things like the learning experience for students, how reliable and valid it is, those sorts of things.
Mm, excellent. So, looking at the concept of assessment security, I think one of the things that come to mind is how do we measure assessment security? Do we need metrics for measuring assessment security, and what might these be?
Yeah, so in the book, I argue that the inability to sort of compare different approaches is partly due to us lacking metrics. So we can't sort of say, well, we've got three different options to choose from. Which one is going to be the best? Which one could we sort of say is measurably the best? What criteria or standards do we have around that? So in the book, I do say, yeah, we should look at having some sort of metrics around assessment security. One of them that I talk about is difficulty to cheat. So how hard is it to cheat in a particular task? And a little bit cheeky in the book, could I actually say one of the ways we could do that is sort of with cost. How expensive is it to pay someone else to do it or to pay for things that might allow you to cheat in it? So that's sort of on the cheating end. The book goes on to talk about sort of detection accuracy metrics, how well, accurate are we at detecting if there's a problem? Proof metrics, how well can we prove cases? How often are we able to prove cases? And prevalence metrics. So how common is cheating? And of course, we want that to be as low as it can be, but we're not going to get it down to zero. So we want to make sure that we're seeing most of the cases of real cheating that exist.
Nice. So, I'm just gonna move that, just continue that conversation, knowing that we're referring to your thoughts on assessment security in the book. There is the notion of part of what you were trying to describe is that assessment security depends on hardware and software security. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah. So in in say cybersecurity, there's an idea that we have software security. Your Windows operating system on your computer is so secure to an extent, but it depends on the underlying hardware being secure. If I control my own PC at home, you could make a really secure Windows installation on that stops me from doing certain things, but I could just chuck a USB key into it because I own the computer, boot up to a new operating system, do whatever I want on top of that. The assessment security products that exist operate on top of that sort of hardware and hardware and software layer and have their own sort of restrictions. But if I control the hardware, I can still do a bunch of stuff. So an example is I might run a really, really long USB cable to another room and have a keyboard at the end of it, have somebody else typing the answers into my online exam rather than me typing it. Yeah, that's a slightly comical example, but it illustrates that our assessment security is really dependent on that hardware and software security as well.
Hmm, that's quite interesting to note. One of the things you also talk about is security through obscurity. I'd like you to share with the audience what you mean by that and why this is important.
Yeah. Okay. So if I have something I want to keep really secure in my house, I might put it in a safe, and that safe's got a combination lock on it, and that's great. We all understand someone's got to know the combination to be able to get in. Um, if I then go and hide where the safe is inside my house, that's security through obscurity. It's not necessarily a bad thing to hide the safe in your house because, people won't be able to know where it is. They'll need to find it to be able to get in. But once knowledge of where the safe is becomes common, well, really, if I'm chatting to someone down the pub and I tell them about where my safe is, that layer of security is gone. Security through obscurity is just any time we have sort of obscure type systems or approaches and assume that that's going to stop people from being able to cheat. Um, the unfortunate thing is it really doesn't. We need provable things that if somebody knows how our systems work, it will still not be possible for them to cheat on those. And I'd give the classic example of say, uh, you know, Turnitin similarity scores, etc. There's no obscurity to that. Everyone knows, well, there's a big database of stuff and the student's work is compared against that big database of stuff. There's no dependence on security through obscurity. If Turnitin were to hide how that worked and say, we magically figure out if your text is similar or not, then maybe that would be dependent on obscurity. But there's no obscurity there. We all know how it works.
Excellent. So now let's look at the AI bit of our conversation today. I'd like you to start by just sharing what AI is, and now that we're talking about assessment security, what can it do and what can it not do?
Yeah. So, uh, what is AI is a question that I'm sure a bunch of computer scientists and philosophers would argue about for a long time. But yeah, functionally, for me in the book, it's in the long term, it's tools that are going to be able to do things that typically were the domain of a professional. So things like medical diagnosis or make a new engineering design or something like that. But in the short term, it's a lot more cut down things that can really go beyond pre programmed rules and infer things from data. So, absorb a large data set and then make some judgments from what's in that data set. Uh, and really, to be honest, a lot of stuff gets bundled into AI that's not really AI, like computer algebra solvers, things where you could say give it a bunch of equations and it'll find the solution for you. But they're not super AI. They're just following a bunch of rules that are already put in there. Now, as far as what this all sort of means for uh, assessment security, it exists sort of on both sides. So we've got on the cheating side of things, we've got tools that can say write text for students. Um, and I would really encourage people to get out there and have a look at some of the automated writing tools that exist. Uh, there's examples in the book where I've just put a few sentences in and I get paragraphs of okay looking text. And then on the other side, we've got AI tools for assessment security. And those include things like AI proctoring in remote proctored exams, or things like, say, Turnitin authorship, which uses AI approaches to look at students' previous work and their current work and see if it's consistent.
All right. Now I'm going to put you on the spot because I've often heard academics who struggle to deal with the concept of AI. And there is a notion that AI will be taking the jobs. There's the fear that AI might not be doing the job as well as we humans can do it. So my question is, how prevalent is AI in supporting assessment security and its delivery? And what is your take on how it could impact or support learning, teaching, and assessment?
Okay, so I think it's pretty prevalent. I'd say during the pandemic, we've seen a really large scale adoption of AI proctoring. Um, so that's quite a significant presence there in assessment security. I think it's likely to be something that's more and more a part of our work into the future. I'd say stylometrics tools like Turnitin authorship are going to be, increasingly playing a role in this. I think the key thing that we want to be aware of is that humans have got to be the decision makers. And
Mhm.
that is typically the way that it's adopted. So if you look at, the two examples that I gave of stylometrics tools and AI proctoring, those raise flags that are then reviewed by humans. And that's the way that we've got to keep it. So humans are great judges of the outputs from the AI. What I'd be really afraid of is if we had the AI declaring somebody is a cheater. I don't think anyone's seriously proposing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so either. I think what I was trying to get at is to get your thoughts on um, that aspect of the fact that humans are still going to own the decision making. AI is only supporting how we get to that decision, pointing out the flags, pointing out things that were anomalies while the student was doing the assessment. Now, continuing the conversation around AI is my question is around what do you think the boundary is between AI and AI cheating?
So I think the boundary is wherever we say that the boundary is. And unfortunately, we almost never say where the boundary is. So we are in this really murky territory at the moment. I think we've got, things like automated algebra solvers or things that go a step further where you just take a photo of the algebra and it gives you the solution. We've got automated translation tools, automated paraphrasing tools, automated writing tools. And in some contexts, those are legitimate tools for the job. And in some contexts, they're downright cheating. As a rule of thumb, I've sort of got two things I like to think of. One of them is what learning outcome are we assessing? Now,
Mm,
if we're assessing an outcome that isn't something that this particular AI tool can really do for us, then we should consider letting students use the AI tool because otherwise it's just kind of this artificial busy work. And again, it just feels like, my junior high school maths teacher telling me I couldn't use my calculator when that's not what we were being assessed on here. So there's that. And then there's also the issue of authenticity. Uh, in the students' future working lives, are these tools going to be an important part of their job? And if they are, they're probably not cheating. Now, there's still a good argument to be made that, for instance, an airline pilot needs to be able to fly the plane without access to the instruments, um, that everyone needs to be able to do their job without all the tools. But once we've demonstrated that a student can do it without the AI tools, I reckon we should let them use the AI tools and not think of them as cheating.
mm, okay. I'm just going to piggyback on the thoughts about assessing learning outcomes. We already know that AI can somewhat meet some of those learning outcomes or support us in actually assessing that. Do we still need to assess these learning outcomes and how can AI detect cheating?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. So, if an AI can do a learning outcome, does it have a role as a learning outcome in education?
Mm,
Look, I think it does because we need students to have what we could call automaticity with particular learning outcomes. We need them to be able to do those things without even thinking. And there, I'm thinking of, say, a first year anatomy course in a medical degree. We need doctors to know all the names of all the parts of the human body without thinking at all. Because if they had to go to a little childhood diagram to go, the knee bone's connected to the whatever bone the knee bone's connected to, uh, that's going to slow. There's a song. Uh, that's going to slow them down so much. So there certainly is a time and a place for doing outcomes that a computer can do, but it's not every time, and it's probably not most of the time. So yeah, I think we need to still assess AI capable outcomes, but we also need to be aware that in the future, the field of AI has a bunch of these Turing tests, goals of the field of AI. And one of those is the robot college student test, which is the development of an AI that can, on its own, get a college degree. And that's really fascinating. If we do succeed in building an AI that can get a college degree, what's the point of the college degree if the robot can do everything?
Yeah. That will be an interesting world we're going to be in if that ever happens. So I hope we don't get there. Just to wrap up, in your book, you encourage educators to actually try out AI tools, AI cheating tools rather. Why is this important? Can you just elaborate on why you feel the need for them to try them out? I slightly understand it from a security aspect where you're thinking about if they know what the tool is doing, they can better prepare for the prepare or secure the assessments against cheating. But I want you to elaborate.
Yeah, so the foundation of it is exactly what you've said. So you really do need to know what someone who is trying to cheat in this would do. And certainly they'd go and try and use all the tools. But beyond that, I'd say it's a little bit of keeping up with technology in your domain. You might actually find that these tools that can be used for cheating are actually also great tools for your own personal everyday work. So grab the tools, whether it's a computer algebra solver if you're in a highly mathematical discipline, or whether it's some of the various tools that can help with paraphrasing or even text creation, and see maybe I can incorporate those into my workflow. Maybe they become part of my authentic assessment rather than something I'm looking to stop students from doing. Maybe they're tools that I need to show students how to use so they're better prepared for their future lives.
Now that is a very good way to end this conversation. I think saying that gives I'm going to put out the word paranoia because sometimes people feel become paranoid when they see all these tools. They're like, okay, why am I actually setting up this assessment? Well, if we can flip the coin and say, all right, we're going to use this as a teachable moment and empower the students, first of all, to be aware of this tool is out there, but how can you use it more effectively? And how can we as educators start thinking about um, incorporating that tool as an authentic assessment practice? That would be a big win for all of us. I'd like to say a big thank you again, Phil. We're looking forward to the topic 4 or part 4 of this series. I won't be calling out what the part 4 is, but I'm hoping and encouraging everyone to be in the last series or last part of this series. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much. It's been so fun.